Africa. I will not be very competent to invite the Honorable IGG. And therefore, I would like to call over the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration, Dr. Mundu Mustafa, to help me invite the Honorable Beti Kamya to the podium to deliver her lecture. Mr. DVC, please. Thank you.
It is now a singular honor to welcome our mighty IGG, Honorable Beti Kamya, to take on the stage. Madam Honorable, you are welcome.
Thank you. Please let's stand up and give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Oh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The people who have spoken before me are lecturers. They know how to talk loud and clear and to be heard and to hold people's attention. You have really given me a problem. But by the grace of God, I will try to say what I came to say. First of all, I respect the dignitaries here today as you have been introduced, and I observe all protocol. Please accept that as my opening statement. But I want to say good morning once again to the lawyers in the making. Lawyers in the making, are you here? They told me that you are the reason, you are the people I'm coming to talk to, lawyers in the making. But first, I want to thank Dr. Kisubi and others, and everybody. Sorry, I apologize.
They have invited the whole university community.
Oh, the whole university community. How honored I am. I am really honored. Thank you very much for coming, the entire university community. I wish to thank Dr. Kisubi Christine, the Dean of Law School of KIU, for inviting me as guest speaker today during this public lecture, and to share my thoughts on the topic, the fight against corruption, the role of university students in promoting integrity and accountability in Uganda. I have known Dr. Kisubi for a long time, and I'm very proud of your service to this country, and especially your achievement to the level of Dean of Law School. Congratulations. I also want to thank you for turning up in such large numbers. It is exciting and refreshing to see such a large number of young people eager to fight corruption. I came with another eager young lawyer called Alan Bunyenyezi, who also doubles as my executive assistant. I also came with a young journalist by profession, Emosingo Moya, who serves as the public relations officer at the Inspectorate of Government. I want to congratulate KIU for achieving the status of third most prestigious private university in East Africa. I am not a stranger to KIU. I've been here before to officiate at a graduation ceremony some time back, and also I have seen many students through KIU, and I'm very proud of the quality of students that you produce. And kindly convey my maximum respect to the founder, Dr. Hassan Basajja Balaba, for the investments and the leadership that he's providing in this country. I want to thank those that spoke before me for the kind words they said about me and the introduction that they did, particularly Dr. Kisubi, and of course, Mr. Mugume Tom, for your kind introduction and reading of my resume. Believe me, I don't take that for granted. You know, when I was a child in primary school, and that's nearly 60 years ago. Yes, some of us have eaten, yes. When I was a child, in primary 3, 4, 5 there, teacher would ask, what is the problem of Uganda? And we would eagerly put up our hands. And you would say, poverty, disease, and hunger, ignorance. And the teacher would say, correct, clap for her. What's happening? Clap for her. And it was a standard answer. I think it was almost in the textbooks. Those of you who are my generation, it was almost a textbook answer. What's the problem of Africa? Poverty, ignorance, disease. That is the problem of Uganda. And the teacher would say, good. The more sophisticated people at the time would say, no, the problem of Africa is colonialism, neocolonialism, foreign aid with strings attached. Those were the sophisticated ones, university professors and political analysts, and they would give the more sophisticated and better sounding answers. But today, you ask, what is the problem of Uganda? Whether you ask a primary school pupil, whether you ask a university professor, whether you ask a politician, a doctor, a witch doctor, a public servant, a street sweeper, an illiterate peasant, farmer, the answer will most likely be the same: corruption. It is now almost universal. It's a universal answer. It's almost consensual that corruption is the #1 problem of Africa and the #1 problem of Uganda. It's sad, isn't it? Corruption has taken on monumental proportions. So it is called a monster. It is called a cancer. It is the reason that most government services to the public leaves a lot to be desired. It's the reason that our healthcare system is in shambles. There are no drugs in hospitals because of corruption. Not because government doesn't have money to buy drugs. Government has money. But that money is given to government officials who, to go and buy drugs, they divert it for their own personal use. And if we don't have money of our own, we go and borrow from development partners, we get loans, we get grants, we have money to buy drugs. But the reason there are no drugs in hospitals is because government officials entrusted to buy the drugs divert it for their own personal use. The roads, the entire infrastructure of this country is in shambles, not because there's no money, because we get loans, we get grants, we have our taxes, we can have the roads, but the entire infrastructure is in shambles because public officials entrusted with the responsibility to buy the road, to build the roads, divert the money that is given to them. All the people that, most people that are given responsibility to provide services for this country, divert it. We have the payroll, public payroll is inflated with ghost workers. The pupils register is inflated with ghost student. So government sends to school capitation grant for ghost students and salaries for guest workers. So there's not enough money to pay a decent wage, a decent salary to teachers and doctors. Because of corruption, government jobs, we did a research, this is a finding, a scientific finding out of research. Many government jobs are on sale to the highest bidder, and the highest bidder is usually holding a fake or forged certificate from NASA Road University. You've heard of NASA Road University? So, because we have so many NASA Road University graduates, it impacts on the quality of service that the government is supposed to provide for this country. We have fake engineers overseeing construction of malls, of buildings. That's why buildings are collapsing. When you go to investigate, you find that the supervising engineer, the supervising consultant were fake engineers from NASA University. Buildings are catching fire because the supervising electric engineer, the plumber are holding fake qualifications from NASA University. We have poor quality roads because contractors use poor quality and insufficient material to build the roads because they have to save money for kickbacks. I am telling you a true life story. We investigated the quality of a road after a tip-off. The government had budgeted for 100 million shillings for the billion for the road, but because of kickbacks, by the time it goes to the contractor, it is half the price. So the contractor is left to figure out how to deliver 100 billion worth of road using 50 billion. And so what does he do? They buy poor quality material, they buy insufficient material, they pay unqualified staff so that they can pay kickbacks and deliver a road at half the price. That is what corruption is doing to this country. Corruption is mainly the reason for the influx of young people who leave Uganda to work abroad, many of them highly qualified, educated on public resources, but when their turn comes to give back to the country, they look for jobs abroad because the jobs were bought by NASA Road University graduates. So they go to other countries, they invest in their host countries, they pay taxes to the host countries, they develop their host countries. Ugandan expert and professional labor is all around us in our neighboring countries. That's where Ugandan doctors are, Ugandan engineers, Ugandan teachers. They are teaching universities outside Uganda in other countries. I don't need to mention the countries. But I will tell you a true story. A friend of mine, thank you, a friend of mine fell sick, and in typical Ugandan fashion, because she was very sick, they advised her to evacuate. You need urgent emergency evacuation to a neighboring country. Because they can afford it, they chartered a helicopter and went to a neighboring country. And when they got there, it was a Wednesday, they told her, "You're very lucky, because every Wednesday afternoon we have a consultant who flies in from abroad to come and look at patients like you." And so she was very happy and waited for the consultant. And exactly at 2:30, the consultant walks in. And who walks in? Our very own Dr. Sekasamvu. And the woman knew him. And she said, "This Sekasamvu, I really left you in Kampala to come and pay you a lot of money here after chartering a plane." But that's the story of Uganda. There's another engineer, true story. He was not able to get a job in Uganda. He applied until he didn't have any shoes. You know, the shoes that walk like this. Until he went to the USA, got a job in Boeing. He's an engineer, a very good engineer, and I am told, because of the quality of his work, a spare part was named after a Ugandan engineer who could not get a job in Uganda because he could not pay for that job. But he's serving in the USA at that level. So to put this sad story in context, ladies and gentlemen, in 2021, the Inspector of Government undertook a scientific research to determine the cost of corruption in Uganda, and the results are incredible. The results were that Uganda could be losing up to 10 trillion shillings per year to corruption. 10 trillion shillings per year to corruption. And I want to put this in context. In the financial year 2022/23, the entire domestic revenue of Uganda was 28 trillion shillings. So out of 28 trillion shillings, which we collected, all of us as Ugandans, 10 trillion is likely to have been lost to corruption. And this is 40% of the entire domestic revenue. In Africa as a whole, the latest research puts it as $300 lost to corruption per year. Oh, my sister from Nigeria, she has left? Oh, she's here, yes. Do you know, I was talking to my colleague, my counterpart in Nigeria, and he told me that they investigated one person and he had 250 mansions, buildings in Nigeria. One person. And you can imagine how many children in Nigeria need scholarships, need medicine, but the story of Africa is largely the same. Tom Mugume, who introduced me, said that I'm the current president of the East African Association of Anti-Corruption Authorities. I was also previous chair of the Association of Commonwealth Anti-Corruption Associations, and we are also members of many other regional and international associations. So I can tell you that the story I'm telling you today of Uganda is pretty much the story of Africa. It is a sad story that we are telling today, but guess who the biggest promoter of corruption is? Who is the biggest promoter of corruption? Sorry? I will tell you, it is public apathy and glorification of corruption. Glorification of corruption. Africans love the big man. They take pride in their big man. They own their big man, irrespective of how they became big. We take ownership. We defend him. We give them seats at high table. We call them our son. We are proud of our big man. We call him Muzee. We call them Kapo. We call them boss because he's a big man. This, in Uganda, these are endearments for a rich man. And because of the crumbs they throw from their table. Take a real life experience example of an ordinary citizen, Ugandan, who goes to hospital with a loved one, say a child, goes to hospital to take his loved one to a public hospital. Typically, there will be no drugs, there will be no equipment, and the service providers are not always on duty. So, the loved one dies. And while you are wailing, your big man, who is your neighbor, comes to console with you and gives you, you know how they give, at most I think it's 500,000 for the coffin. And you feel so good, so indebted, so grateful. You go home at the funeral, you give him the front seat, you raise him up, you tell mourners, if it wasn't for this man, I would not have bought a coffin for my son. If it wasn't for this man, I would not have been able to transport my child from the hospital. Please, sir, stand up. He calls his wife, kneel down and thank this man. This man is the one who stole the money for the medicine. If he had not stolen the money for the medicine, there would be no need for a coffin, there would be no need for a funeral. The man is a murderer. But we glorify them, all of us. We don't care to find out where they got the money from. Your neighbor's son gets a job. He was working with, everybody knows, with a collar, which is, you know how the collar can look sometimes. Then he gets a job in a government. 6 months later, he's driving a flashy car. He has bought his mother-in-law a new house. He has taken his children from the village school to new schools. He has even bought a house. And the village clap for him. They hail him. They call him smart. They start calling him boss, Kapo, Muzee. And the neighbor's son, who got the job last year and doesn't have those things, they call him an idiot, Musiru. How can you? He has started working. Look at so-and-so's son. He has just gone. He has bought a car. They earn the same salary. You yourself, what are you doing? You are really shaming us. That one, We say things that put down people of integrity and glorify people who benefit from public resources. That's why I'm saying the biggest promoter of corruption is the public. Our apathy and glorification of the proceeds of corruption. Having said that, Uganda has made some efforts to fight corruption. The current administration of President Yoweri Museveni has battled corruption from many angles. You remember when they were in the bush, it was point number 7 to fight corruption. As soon as they took over power in '86, by presidential decree, because we didn't have a parliament, then he created the Inspectorate of Government. Later, when we got a constitution, the Inspectorate of Government was enshrined in the constitution with the main objective of elimination of corruption and adherence to strict adherence to the rule of law. And then later, we go to Parliament through the Constitution. And the Constitution has enacted Parliament law after law after law. Some of them are creatures of the Constitution. The Constitution created the Inspectorate of Government, all these to fight corruption. Created the Inspectorate of Government, created the Office of the Auditor General, created CID, we have the Parliamentary Oversight, and PPDA. This is a public procurement of assets, public assets, procurement and disposal of public assets. Then those are creatures of the Constitution. But then also Parliament created laws, so many. The IG Act, the Leadership Code Act. The Leadership Code Act is the one which requires leaders and all public servants to declare their wealth, their income, assets and liabilities to the Inspectorate of Government. That is all intended to show transparency and to monitor the conduct of leaders and public officials. We have the National Audit Act, the Police Act, the PPDA Act, Anti-Corruption Act, the Penal Code Act, the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the Administration of Parliament Act, and the rules of procedure thereunder that creates PARC, COSASE, PARC central government, PARC local government. All those were created by Parliament to fight corruption. And when it was not enough, even executive authority added through creation of the Ethics and Integrity Department under the Office of the President, supervised by a minister. Through executive authority, we also have State House Anti-Corruption Unit. And through executive authority, we also have the State House Medical Monitoring Unit. And through executive authority, we also have the Investor Protection Unit. All those laws and statutes were created to fight corruption. But corruption has amazing resilience. It is not going away. None of these is scaring corruption. It just gets stronger and more entrenched in a society as a way of life. The public condemns corruption in a loud voice, but cheers it on with overt actions, as you have seen. When they're on the radio or on the streets demonstrating corruption, corruption, on the radio, in the papers, on social media, they condemn corruption with a loud voice, but glorify it through their covert actions, and thus we have a problem. So, through these laws that I've told you about, I will speak for the Inspector of Government, but I'm speaking for other anti-corruption agencies also. We've tried to fight corruption. We get whistleblower accounts of who has stolen money, who has stolen a road. We get those accounts. And traditionally, using these laws, we investigate, we do all sorts of things, we prosecute, we arrest people, we summon them, we search bank accounts. We have so much authority, which we use also. We search. I can come to your house and search it with my signature. I can give anybody my signature and say, go to so-and-so's house and search. And there's nothing you can do about it because I have signed using the law and the power that is given me by the law. All those we have done, but corruption has refused to go away. So, we've devised another strategy. In addition to all those anti-corruption strategies. We have devised another strategy, which I'm here to discuss with you and to mobilize you to follow. That is the mindset change of the entire public of Uganda. To recognize corruption as a dangerous monster, almost singularly responsible for all our woes and frustrations. Corruption should not be seen as an opportunity and a vehicle to become rich. Our campaign is to incite the public against corruption, to recognize corruption, to shun it, to despise it, to stop glorifying corruption. We have taken the war to the public. We are telling the public it is your war because you are victims. You are the victims of corruption. The man whose loved one died in hospital was a victim of corruption. And if you're a victim, you fight back. Because if you don't fight back, the monster will kill you. So we've taken the war to the people, and we are mobilizing all the people of Uganda to join the war against corruption. We have unmasked corruption. You know, the word corruption was like there, corruption, but it is so difficult. Corruption, by its nature, is so difficult to unmask or to identify, because by practice, by nature, it is practiced between two willing giver and willing seller. It is practiced between syndicated corruption. All the people in the chain or in the circle are involved in covering up for each other, in sidestepping laws. That is how it works. It is under the table. It is offshore. It is through proxies. That is how corruption is practiced. So it's very difficult to know who has taken money. But we have unmasked corruption. And in our public campaigns, we have exposed its face. Because corruption has a face. We teach the public to recognize corruption. It is that lifestyle that is not commensurate with a person's known source of income. It's that expensive, top-of-the-range vehicle that a middle-level public servant is driving, which is clearly beyond his or her known source of income. It is that mansion which somebody is building here and there, which clearly is not commensurate with their known source of income. Corruption has a face. It is those whole family holidays abroad, which clearly they cannot afford or they cannot explain. It is those expensive schools for their children, which they cannot explain. Those are red flags. Those are faces of corruption, which everybody, because everybody is a victim, everybody should look out for these faces of corruption. And I'm not asking you to take stones and throw them at them or go and burn the house or do what? No. All I'm asking is that you use all the channels of communication present to expose them. When I said this, when I first took office, then people are saying on social media, Betty, if you cannot fight the war for which you are paid, resign and go home. When I said everybody must join this war, then people said, you resign and go home, because that's your job if you can't do it. And I'm telling you, My job is to be the commander of the war. But the war will be won by the foot soldiers. Because you are the one, if somebody takes money from the Ministry of Health and goes and builds a house in Karamoja or in Kabale or in Kochi, how will I know? It is you, the neighbor, who will know that my neighbor is building a house. It is you, the contractor, who knows that this man is building a mall in Kampala, because he's the one he's the one who contracted me. It is you, the driver, who takes this big man to Kulambula all his projects in the evening. The driver, you know, his wife may not even know, or her husband may not even know, but the driver knows, the contractor knows, the mason knows. So everybody in their space can play a role, and the role is to report these people to the anti-corruption agencies, to the Inspectorate of Government, and once we know about this, then we can do something about it. We have put it to the citizens of Uganda that if you know about corruption, but you choose to enjoy the crumbs from that man's table because you can knock on the door, noga muzei, you know, you're passing around, aba boda boda, they say, muzei, you give them something to do what? To drink. Don't you say them? Eh? When you go to anywhere, say, otule sotia, meaning give us some money. They don't care how you get the money. They just otule sotia. And if you give them 50,000, they even make way for you. 50,000. For those who are in campaigns, you just give them 2,000 and they give you a vote. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've put it to the citizens that if you do not report corruption, when we have told you how to recognize corruption, and corruption is very easy to recognize because you choose to enjoy the crumbs from the corruption table, then you are an accomplice, you are a collaborator, you are a promoter, and don't cry about poor services because you are an accomplice. Some people do some pretty big things for people. Maybe they are educating your child. This man, he's paying school fees for my daughter. But if he did not take money, government would be able to have good quality schools, and your daughter would be going to school from your sweat because you pay salaries, not from the crumbs for this man or woman who has taken money from the public coffers that was meant to build good schools. Sometimes it may not be so easy to identify corruption, much less to prove it in court. But we all know that the proceeds of corruption are not thrown in the lake. They are not flushed down the toilet. They are not thrown in the latrine. The proceeds of corruption surface as assets, which we see. One time, I was talking to the chairman of Wakiso district, and he told me, all those sprawling buildings, mansions, you see in Nalia, in Nigeria, in Kira, in Seguku, he told me all those places, all those belong to public servants and public officials. It is not easy because they hide them under proxies. They hide them, but you know who they belong to. The one who calls you and says, why don't you? Why don't you approve this plan? What are you waiting for? It is not the person in the on the chapa, on the names. It is someone else with authority. You also know who pays the bills of water and electricity. The name is in the chapa is in the names of somebody else, but somebody else is paying. Or somebody else, the money for the rent is going to some account where somebody is the signatory. So there are many many ways of finding out where corruption is happening. So we have decided through the Leadership Code Act, which requires public officers to declare their income, wealth, and liabilities, to step up our oversight and start verifying seriously. Instead of waiting for a whistleblower to tell me that so-and-so is building a house, I want the public to get involved, all of them, to start monitoring. People are registered, people are supposed to declare, but they under-declare. Some of them don't declare at all. Some things, non-declaration, all those are breaches under the law. Non-declaration of wealth, under-declaration, even over-declaration in anticipation are breaches under the law. Some people over-declare. He says when he gets a job in government, he says he has so many things. When he doesn't have them, in anticipation, the man came when he was rich. Munange, it just says there. So we are going to verify all that. We shall strengthen our regional and international partnerships so that we can effectively follow and repatriate assets and other forms of capital siphoned and exported abroad. But the most effective weapon of all time in this war is public consciousness and participation in the war against corruption, and they should be motivated by the fact that you are a victim of corruption and it has reached you. You may not know it. If there is insecurity because of the lack of police, if your house catches fire and police cannot reach you in time because there's no fire brigade in the district, you are a victim, because there should be enough money to provide all these services. I am very proud of the public because they have started responding. We are getting more and more public engagement. They reach out to us, they inform us. Some of them are suspicions, some of them are wars, you know, like boardroom wars, office wars, domestic wars. They will say things that are not true, but we investigate. We are professionals. We shall not just go after you because of an allegation. We investigate. We have the tools, the know-how, and the capacity to distinguish the truth from the non-truth. By the way, I need to tell you this as I wind up. Parliament, in its wisdom, also created a motivation to report. They enacted the Whistleblowers Act. According to the Whistleblowers Act, if you bring information that directly leads me to save money and get it refunded, whether by confiscation of property or forcing people to refund money or auctioning of property, if you bring information and your information leads us to save money, you are entitled through the Whistleblowers Act to 5% of the money recovered. And I'll put this in context. If you lead us to recover 1 billion shillings, 5% of 1 billion shillings is 50 million. Omulimu gulabise is 50 million. So there is motivation in fighting corruption and reporting corruption. I will acknowledge finally that corruption is not just in government alone. It is also in the private sector. Whatever happens in government happens in private sector as well. The procurement officer in private sector also inflates the cost of goods. Given an opportunity, they will buy substandard goods at premium prices. They will deliver less quantities and declare more on the delivery note. They will deliver air. The storekeeper will also store air and share with the procurement officer. The HR person in the private sector will also demand sex and other benefits before they give out a job. So corruption is not just in government, it is also in the private sector. But government hasn't worked out how to deal effectively because it affects the whole country as well. If you underdeclare goods, you are in a factory procurement, you underdeclare goods, it will eventually make the cost of the product expensive, and that makes our entire economy less competitive than another economy. So corruption in private sector also undermines the development of the country, the growth of the economy. So if it can be reported also, it should be reported. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how much time I was given, but on this question of corruption, I could go on and on and on, but the clock is ticking and I must end here. I want to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. A round of applause again for our guest speaker for that very, very insightful discussion, very engaging, practical examples, and also a huge task for all of us here today. You have now seen your role, the role you have played in promoting this vice, and I think the task is that we should have a change in our mindset and be able to name and shame those that are involved in this vice. Okay, the guest speaker wants to make a word again.
This is another very important one that I must tell you. You have seen, when we get the corrupt person, we take them to court, the entire village comes out to defend their son. They demonstrate their social solidarity in court. Their court is full because you are taking our son. But the IJJ is saying, I have evidence. By the person I've taken this person to court, I have evidence. Then they take NRM t-shirts and burn them in public. Museveni, if you don't leave our son alone, we are not going to give you votes. Then when he gets bail means you are still a suspect, but attend court from home. When he gets bail and goes home, he finds there a banquet complete with drums and dancing. Our sons have come back. That is how we are glorifying and promoting and condoning corruption. Thank you. I thought I should say this.
Thank you once more. We have room for that. Well, thank you so much. These are really practical realities in society. And as she said, this is the ugly story of Africa. And we must tackle it head on. Going back before I get back to our mainstream program, I want to recognize those that will anchor the second segment of our program. And we'll have Esther Munduru. Where is Miss Esther Munduru? Can you wave for recognition? Thank you very much. Ms. Esther is a certified financial literacy trainer with Bank of Uganda and founder and executive director of Family Uplift Uganda. You're most welcome. We also have Mr. Philip Chirowa. Where is Mr. Philip Chirowa? You're most welcome, Mr. Philip. He is a banker with Equity Bank, and equally a financial literacy trainer under Bank of Uganda. And they will be the ones to take us through the second segment. A round of applause for him. We also have Ms. Christine Dajire. Ms. Christine, yes, please, a round of applause for Ms. Christine. She is PTTC Coordinator Uganda, Girl Guides Association, Waste Management Entrepreneur. So these are some of our important guests here today. At this point, guest of honor and management, permit me to invite Professor Shedrack Ekpa and Dr. Isabire Joel, who will pilot and steer through the next point on our agenda, which is panel discussion and student engagement. A round of applause for Professor Shedrack Ekpa, who is the head of Department Public Law and Jurisprudence, School of Law, and my able Dr. Joel Isabire. You're all welcome, sirs. Thank you.
Good afternoon, our distinguished guest lecturer and our top management staff of the Kampala International University. Standing on protocol that is firmly established, I want to start by commending the guest lecturer for this very sound exposition. And it is on record that this kind of exposition don't come easily once upon a time. We want to commend you for your industry. We want to commend you for the clarity in the discussion. But one of the things I want to point out very quickly is the fact that I had followed up with one of our own anti-corruption Caesar in Nigeria, that is the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. But one thing I discovered is that when we are dealing with anti-corruption Caesars, one thing is very close. There is a common affinity. That is a great passion for your job. And I must commend you, man. The sum total of the discussion focuses on one common idea. And the idea is the fight against corruption requires effective collaboration. It is no longer one man's show. And that you have detailed very, very clearly. But there's another I want to point out in the course of our opening for panel discussion. The issue of, we talked about the issue of whistleblowing. There's another issue that is closely tied to it. That is the issue of witness protection. How do we people come out to blow whistle where they are not protected? I think the law should look radically at that point of witness protection, because it's very key. Because evidence in court are hampered weighed down by lack of credible witnesses. You have a case, but you don't have people that will establish the proof. As lawyers, we know that cases are not just like election. The number of persons you are bringing to court, you must have evidence that attract high probative value. It is not the number of witnesses you are bringing to court, but the quality of witnesses that you are bringing with their evidence which are of high probative and credible value. Without much ado, I understand that the essence of panel discussion is to engage interactively, to ensure that we rub minds together, because we have already situated the agenda by saying that the agenda against corruption is not a one-man show. So as scholars, it is important for us to also accommodate people's perception. What do people think about our fight against corruption? So that at the end of the day, we can aggregate all our concerns together to pursue one common front. I am also tied together with my colleague, Dr. Jewel, to anchor this part of the ceremony. And it will be disservice for me to continue to go as if I am alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that introduction to this particular session. We thank our guest speaker, the Honorable Beti Kamya, who has done a commendable job as IGG and in other positions that she has served over time. I was particularly thrilled by some of the things she mentioned, one of which was to take interest in private sector corruption, because one of the factors that drive public sector corruption is a materialism that is in the private sector, and public officials see their colleagues who they studied with advancing so fast, partly due to private sector corruption, and they feel they should not be left behind. So if that is tackled, then it is a step forward. Perhaps a question that we will talk about at some point is what happens when the money is recovered, because some of these behavioral change campaigns work with optics. If people find out that 50 billion was recovered and was taken to the project that it was supposed to go to, chances are that it would multiply their interest in partaking in exposing the corrupt. Prof, I think we can get the panel started.
Yeah.
Our
distinguished guest lecturer, permit us the modus of operandi shall, subject to approval, shall be to welcome some set of questions from the student, maybe aggregate them together so that you can provide answers at once. And because we know that this is essentially a university affair, we will welcome a situation where we test those questions from all the schools so that we can have an all-engaging and all-robust perspective on this issue. So if you are interested in putting questions, distinguished guest lecturer, I want to believe that I have been permitted to proceed. All right. So, for us to manage time and other information, we will take 3, allow the guest lecturer to respond. We'll take another 3. So you start with introduction and be very clear to the point. We don't want story. Be clear to the point, your name, your school, your level, then straight to your question.
Okay, let me start with the gentleman there.
Thank you so much, Mr. MC. Once again, my name is Lukwago Ashraf Semanila, and I'm a student of law in my year 2, semester 2. Madam IGG, welcome you to the mighty university, Kampala International University. My question is, last time you appeared on a show of Women Breeze, and there's an issue talked about on the issue of the 10 trillion shillings that is lost by the government to the corruption. But then we talked about that this corruption is not necessarily lost to the people who embezzle the money. You talked about in a sense that even people who don't pay taxes be part of that 10 trillion shillings that is lost. So I'm seeking for more clarity. If I tell someone on the issue of clarity, if I tell someone fails to pay taxes, how is that corruption? Like, I want you to just tell me light about that. Thank you very much.
Yes, the next.
Thank you. We should have a good spread. Okay. Not seeing ladies.
Protocol observed. My name is Mhanji Stephen, a student pursuing bachelor's degree of public administration, year 2, second semester.
a concerned citizen and a foot soldier at all. Representing people from Uganda West, firstly I appreciate you for your tireless effort fighting against corruption. In your speech, you said that we should report these people that do practice corruption. But which strategy have you formulated from local levels, starting from local levels, that we whistleblowers that would wish to decampaign corruption, starting from our villages, because even these police officers where we could report, they are the ones that are practicing corruption. What are we going to do as we foot soldiers? Thank you.
Thank you. A lady this time around? No lady? Oh God. Dr. Okay, let me go right behind there. Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm called Miriga Rasul, student of PhD Management Science, Education Management. At the same time, I also work in the district. So I want to share my experience of what is happening in corruption. I've observed that your office is fighting corruption mostly at the lower levels, but the key corruption takes place at the highest levels, who are not exposed, who are not prosecuted, and that is, I think, a very key issue that is happening there. Two, we have the police. The police are really doing corruption, even everybody is seeing, but no action is being taken against them. Thirdly, there was an issue that happened. One of my head teachers forged my signature and went and withdrew 8 million from a UP account. I started pursuing that case. The same police actually tried to even side with this man, and people had to come to the police headquarters, take the signature experts to go and verify, and it took us 5 years. That's when this court was finally ruled. So I've just come to realize that somebody without money cannot be able to get justice. It's only people with money who can get justice. So thank you very much.
Hello, Dr. Val.
Thank you.
You may come for the Honorable's response.
I appreciate the comments from Professor Ekpa, the comments from Dr. Isavirie, further enlightening the topic. I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate the young people that have asked the questions. Mr. Lukwa, yes, Dr. Isavirie asked what happens to the money recovered. The money recovered by law is put back in the consolidated fund so that it is now integrated in the main budget. That is the law. But if we need to change the law, and I think you've proposed something interesting, so that it goes to the project from which it was stolen, then it might be interesting. But those are amendments to the law that can be taken up. And of course, Professor Ekpa also asked about the Whistleblower Protection Act. There's a Whistleblower Protection Act, but the biggest protection of the whistleblower is the whistleblower himself. Because people whistleblow, then they brag. They expose themselves. You are not supposed to expose yourself because it is dangerous. But the law does protect the whistleblower. But as you say, Professor Ekpa, it needs, of course, further cushioning, further strengthening, and that is taken, because we are either in the middle of trying to amend the act to strengthen it, and those observations are very helpful indeed. Mr. Lukwago Ashraf, yes, the 10 trillion, he asked, how does failure to pay taxes become corruption? But what happens is usually collusion between the taxman, tax collector, and the taxpayer. So they work together and underdeclare goods, or in quantity, or in value, or in specification, so that they pay lower taxes or not taxes at all. But these taxes are shared between the taxpayer and the tax collector. That is basically what happens. It's not that the money doesn't leave the taxpayer's bank account. It does, but it goes to the tax collector's pockets, and that is one of the biggest actually sources of the 10 trillion shillings. Tax evasion, in other words, tax evasion. Mr. Mhanji, where should we report? Alan, yes, Mr. Mhanji is right. Normally, we circulate numbers. Some of them, they are called what? Non-paying, toll-free. Others, Alan, you please write them down for me. I'm going to read them. Huh? You sent them to me? Okay, on my WhatsApp. I will read it at a later time. But also, let me tell you, even if you just post it on social media, I will pick it up. Even if you just post it, some people don't want to be known, and they have posted stories in social media, and we've picked them up and followed them up, and indeed that did some very good work. But as for the communication, you can walk into any of our offices around the country. You can send a letter, you can send an email. I'll give you the email addresses. You can do a WhatsApp. You can even just post it on social media. There are many ways, but the most important thing, get it out there. We shall get it. Of course, I'm not saying that it is foolproof. We are struggling. This is a war. Nobody said that war is a walkover. We are struggling to improve it, but if you are in the war, you also try to find a way to get information there, and many people are doing it. Thank you, Mr. Mhanji. And then there's Mr. Ransom, who said, yes, this is a very popular one. They say you just go for the small fish and you leave the big fish, and the big fish are the ones who are really corrupt. And I've said that is true, because you see, the big fish are very slippery. The big fish don't sign anywhere. They don't sign checks. They don't sign contracts. They don't do anything. They tell the small fish to do the dirty work. Now the problem is with the small fish. How does the minister tell you, find me 100 million? We've had the testimonies. Somebody says, minister asked me for 100 million, so I had to find a way. And by finding a way, this small fish raises a requisition, whatever it is they raise. And then they go and say, it's the minister who wants it. It's the minister who wants it. So they authorize until the last person goes to the bank, withdraws the money, and gives the minister. And the minister's signature has not been seen anywhere. So for me, when I'm tracing, I saw the man who requisitioned, I said, small fish come. Where is the activity? I saw the man who approved, I say come. I saw the man who went to the bank and got the money, and it ended with him. He says, I gave the money to the minister, but the minister did not sign. So part of the war is to empower people, empower yourself. If the minister says, I want 100 million, tell him to give you a written authorization. It is true. We have interdicted cows We have interdicted small fish because that's where the evidence leads me and stops. So in this war against corruption, it includes being able to face your boss and say, can I have the instruction in writing? And then you give the money to the minister, and then for you struggle with fake accountability. The cow now, or the PS, or the undersecretary is now struggling to account for the 100 million which he gave to the minister, but he feared the minister doesn't account, has not signed anywhere. So we take the cow, we take the undersecretary, we take them to court, the evidence is there. Did you sign or did you not sign? This accountability is fake. And we put you in because the evidence ends with you. So part of this struggle is to empower our people to shun corruption, to get in writing instructions in writing, and if you give them somebody money, let them sign for it. For now, I think those are the questions. They're very valid questions that were asked, but I think in the interest of time, they had to be very brief. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Beti Kamya. Before we take another round of 3 questions, one question that the public tends to ask is, what is the degree of counterintelligence in the IGG's office? How do you protect yourself from being influenced by the corrupt? How do you ensure that these investigative officers are not also compromised and then become accomplices in the grand project of corruption? So we can get the next 3 and then proceed.
Okay. So we're taking 3 more questions. And please, as you were told, you have to be very brief, precise, and straight to the point.
Yes, good afternoon. Protocol observed. I'm very lucky. My name is Sylvia Emmanuel. I'm a Juris Doctor, student of law. I want to thank Honorable for the work done. I have been observing your work for a lot of time. Thank you so much. And look forward to also continue with the same spirit. I am also working so hard in the law school. So on that, I have some recommendations. How about we put strict, feared law on these corrupt people? I have a belief that people who are corrupt do not fear these stories and the things we are putting across, report, etc., etc. But if we could scare, we put a strong law that if we find you are corrupt, you go for death. Death. If we find you corrupt, we take everything. Even what you did not take from corrupt, we take it all. Another issue. How about minister will look at this issue of Anyaku money to get jobs? That is another source of corruption. The issue of Anyaku money to get a job is another source of corruption. Now, what can we do as an advice? How about we go and look through, or we look through the policy called meritocracy. Whoever is not qualified, let that person be terminated. We are here, we are studying for 5 years. Then we start moving around the streets because someone is known and is in the office. I have spent my entire time in library only for someone who is known. The same issue. Why should someone become a guild president simply because someone is better? You say I am capable, but I don't have money. My name is Hon Emmanuel.
Thank you. Yeah, let's have a lady this time around. There's a lady there. Let's have a lady.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please, let's be calm and we get this other question. Let's be calm, please, ladies and gentlemen, let's be calm.
Good afternoon. Protocol observed. My name is Kantonin Sharifa Chaine, Year 1, Semester 1. My question is, Honorable, you say that you always don't have proof, right? But there are some ministers, like a minister who was caught with iron sheets, but they just showed on the news, and it was left there, no following up, no action was taken, but she still holds the minister position. No, you should, those people should give examples to the public, but if they are caught, they should get punishments. Several ministers, several people are coming up with evidences of those higher people, but no action is taken. Like the people who embezzled funds in the Bank of Uganda, they just showed it on the news that they are caught, they are taken to court. That's where it ended. No any action was taken. They said that they are going to take action after 1 week or later. They are on bail, embezzling a lot of funds. There is evidence, but nothing is taken.
Thank you. Okay, so who? This one? Okay. On the instructions of the dean.
Yes, let me see by passing, you know that is corruption. Because I've been raising my hand ever since. By the names, anyway, I beg to be protected. I beg to be protected. IGG, there is something about the chairman of Uganda National Bureau of Standards. That means that person, for sure, I beg to be protected. I'm not going to mention my name, but there's something about that chairperson. The one, I beg to be protected. I have information about that man. Thank you.
Yeah. You have been told to be a secret whistleblower, so don't blow the whistle in public.
I think since you didn't really have a question, we can take someone else. The last one.
You have this one. No, don't. If you start taking it, take. Okay, let me read that one. There is one here. Okay, there is a question here, and the question reads thus: do you use technology to fight corruption? How prepared is your office in handling technology corruption? So I think that is the last question for this set. For this set, please, for this set. I am not saying it is the last question permanently. I said for this set.
So our dean has a question, and we don't want to be corrupt, so we shall take the microphone to her.
Thank you very much. Honorable, you talked about mindset change. And you said mindset change, to me, I think it should start from the grassroots. When I was growing up, when I was in primary, we used to have civic education. It was a course unit that was there. Of late, they have eliminated it from the curriculum. So primary level, they will talk about corruption. When we went to O level, there's nothing. There's no course unit talking about, there's no subject talking about corruption. O level, there was general paper. I don't know whether they're still teaching about corruption. Then at university, it is not there at all. So if you're talking about mindset change, then you have also to visit the Curriculum Development Center to advocate for a course unit to be included in there. Thank you.
Yes, distinguished honorable, you can respond to these numbers.
It's getting warmer and hotter all the time. And I appreciate all the people that got the opportunity to get the microphone. First was somebody whose name I didn't get, but he asked whether there is counterintelligence at the IG and how we are sure that the IG, Inspector of Government staff, are not corrupt. One, in the Inspector of Government, we have our own standards unit, which inspects us. We have a unit, it's called the Division for Internal Inspection and Information. So, people are also on Wunkenke, they know that somebody is looking out for them. But more importantly, people are people, and as I said, corruption is between the willing giver and willing seller. So it is these strategies that we are putting here that will even smoke out the Inspector of Government people. If they are corrupt, they will not be hiding money under the pillows or in the lake. They will also show it through their lifestyle. So we are hoping that through this strategy of monitoring people's wealth and lifestyles, we can flush out even those in the Inspector of Government. But I also tell you, yes, we have had incidences of suspicions of corruption. We have investigated, we have prosecuted, we have sacked people from the Inspectorate of Government, because it's from the same basket. They are Ugandans, they are people, they have weaknesses, but we hold very strict standards. If we even hear that you are involved in corruption, we say goodbye to you there and then. But we investigate, and we'll be happy to get information from the public. If a member of the Inspectorate of Government asks you for money, please come quietly, tell us, we shall trap them and get them when they are receiving money, and the law will take its course. Mr. Sebunya was saying, why don't you do the fear blow? You know, we're talking to some Chinese, and they told us in China, this is how they handle corruption. First of all, they put their system where you fear to be corrupt, because there you can even lose your neck. And also, it has come to a point where I don't even want to be corrupt. And also, you dare not be corrupt. So China has got to that level. And yes, Mr. Sebunya, we need to get to that level. But most important, we need evidence. Evidence. One problem I told you is that corruption is very difficult to fight because it is under the table between willing seller and willing buyer, in the darkness, through proxies. It is a very, very difficult monster to fight. So, but we are counting on this public war, because then it will expose and get us evidence. But you cannot, according to our judicial system, you cannot punish people based on allegations and non-proven evidence. And court, according to our judicial system, requires you to bring evidence beyond reasonable doubt. That makes it extremely difficult. But yes, we are aiming to get there. Kantono Sharif, yes, she asked about the iron sheet ministers. Again, it is our judicial system. The minister went to court and raised an issue, because we had taken the one minister to court, but the minister appealed to court, and the court gave them, Alan, what is it? Injunction, put an injunction on the investigation because of the issues that the minister argued before court. So we have to work within our judicial system. That is what is happening. Another one is Bank of Uganda money. I think it's still under investigation. So it's not like they are not doing anything. I mean, look at Kazinda case. It is 10 years old. Kazinda, I'm sure some people were too young to even remember Kazinda case. But he went on appealing at every level that he lost. Now he's in the East African Court of Appeal, 10 years later. So we have a judicial system that is also not very friendly to fight corruption. But all that's part of the war. We have to, especially you young people, when you are coming up, face the law and fight also so that we improve and strengthen the law. But that does not take away the most important fact that we must continuously improve our strategy to fight corruption and get everybody involved. There's a gentleman who wanted to be protected and remained nameless. He said he has information about somebody and you're exposing yourself too much. You even said you shouldn't do that. But my advice is find a way of reaching me, or if you want I can reach you and we have a discussion on that matter and we take it up from there. And then somebody asked, what about technology? Of course technology is going to help a lot. AI, artificial intelligence and other forms of technology. Actually, at the Inspection of Government, we have undertaken a very vigorous digitalization program because most of our operations and processes are manual. So we are undertaking a vigorous digitalization program, and I think in the next year or so we shall be fully digitized, and I expect that the productivity and the quality of our work will improve. And finally, Dr. Kisubi, you talked about mindset change. Yes, of course, we should start the curriculum. I mean, this war is not for the IG alone, like I said. Everybody should participate. Even the KIU Law School can sponsor a legislation in Parliament or an amendment of the law in Parliament, or even go to the National Curriculum Development Center. We can all join the war. I'm promising you that we do our best. In fact, we are engaging all sectors of society, from the Interreligious Council of Uganda, going to faith organization, through NGOs, civil society organization, up to the village level, universities. We probably haven't been to KIU, I don't know, have a department of education and advocacy, but we roll out and reach out. And you are right, the mindset change must be universal, and we must go as low as primary school as it used to be. It is not going to be a walk in the park. It is a long war, but the important thing is that we have got the right equipment, the right frame of mind, and the right motivation to fight this war. Then we shall get there. I want to thank you very much for your interventions.
Thank you so much, distinguished guest speaker. Please, I'll be hiding under the banner of the benevolence of the distinguished honorable to say that if you have any query regarding our discussion and interaction, you can channel them through the Dean School of Law. We want to assure you that we'll transmit it to the distinguished honorable so that we can save time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Shedrack and Dr. Isadia, for
anchoring that segment of the program. A round of applause for our distinguished professors. Thank you very much. We'll be moving to the next segment of the program, and that would be an award of a certificate to the guest speaker. But before that, an announcement, please. We are going to have another segment, another presentation after this, and I have been reliably told that since most of you were brought here, we came here when we had not taken something to support the stomach, there will be sodas and some bites, so you don't need to bother. You don't need to worry yourself about hunger, because there is something that you're going to buy it and drink as we move into the next segment. And after the presentation of the certificate to the guests of honor, we shall also crave the indulgence of the guest speaker to grace our university with some photos with members of the management team of Kampala International University and heads of schools, colleges, and departments here present. So at this point, I welcome the our University Secretary, Madame Christine, to take the microphone and to present this certificate as a token from Kampala International University to the Honorable Beti Kamya, guest speaker for this event today. You're most welcome, Madam. Yes.
Thank you, MC. Good afternoon. The session we are on is to give the certificate to our guest, but to appreciate her for coming. It was a great honor, and I know all of us, at least we have gained something.
Thank you. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Thank you.
I don't know. I'm still have to work out whether it is in my office or in my bedroom or in my living room because I want it everywhere so that everybody can see that I was given a certificate of application by KIU. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is also another award of appreciation. This is to be awarded to Honorable Beti Kamya Turwomwe, Inspector General of Government, in recognition and appreciation of the contribution you have made to fight against corruption. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this very, very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move straight to the session for photos.
Both of them have the issue. No, wait, no, shoot. There are some errors there that will need to be corrected. Yeah.
So let's have photos with our guest speaker. And this first round of photos will be with the Central University Management and the Dean School of Law, and also